Let's start off by talking about plants and nature. Do you have any plants at home?
No, I do have fake plant though. I really don't have what we call green hands where the plant will last with me for so long. I had one, but then didn't last for a week. So I might try another one and let's see if it'll last long.
Would you like to grow plants in the future?
Yes, I want to have my own farm. Buy a massive lot back home in Philippines and just live a simple life. Start planting and selling it. Make it as a business.
Are gardens popular in your hometown?
Gardens. Yes. Every household in Philippines, there's really gardens where, family can chill. Grew a lot of plants. My mom had one back then. But right now we're living in a city. So there's no space for her to grow plants or have a garden herself. But that's one of her dreams, having her own garden.
Now let's talk about money. What do you spend the most amount of money on?
I would say I spend most of my money for my rent, my car, and probably food. I'm a foodie myself.
How have spending habits changed in your country over the years?
Basically, I moved in the UAE for my adult years. So way back then, I really don't care about money. It's more of the parents who handles the expenses and everything. But right now, as an adult, I wouldn't say oblige, but somehow Filipinos are obliged to send back to their parents, send money monthly to pay for the expenses. And right now with the economy back home, it's quite expensive, I would say, which helped me learn and how to handle my finances more, to be wise in what I spend.
What financial advice would you give to others?
I think if it's not a necessity, then just save it. Just keep saving. Always have at least half of your salary as savings. The rest, maybe 25% will be your expenses. 10% will be things that you want to buy for yourself, your wants. The rest would be, other expenses like maybe give to charity or some works like that. Well, I do charity sometimes. So I would definitely say 50% save it.
Now let's talk about food habits. How often do you eat out? Before we continue, I've created something very special for you. It's called the Fluent Speakers Breakthrough Checklist, and it shows you exactly how to move from band 6.5 to band 7 or above in 4 simple steps. This is the same direct answer method that helped this student go from 6.5 scores to success by fixing one strategic weakness at a time. I put everything that I know about this into this free checklist, and you can download it in the description in seconds. Just go to the description, click the link below, and you can download it right away for free.
2 years ago, I would really go out at least 3 times a week with my friends. But right now, having the thought of healthy living and thinking more about my future, my investments, my savings and all of that, I barely eat out. Occasionally, when there's a birthday or when I feel like treating myself, like I've done a good job at work, probably, that's the only time I would eat out.
What type of food do you usually eat?
As an Asian, I love Filipino food. Really love Filipino food. But I fell in love with Arabic food as well. I love kebab. I love shawarma. I also love biryani. But sometimes sushi or Japanese cuisine is my weakness too.
If you have a choice, do you prefer to eat at home or eat out?
Well, I love cooking. So every day I really cook for myself, for my lunch to bring to the office. But if I'm given enough money to eat out every day, why not? Describe a creative solution you found to a problem. Working as a hotel manager, I face problems every single day. I had this experience where a VIP guest just checked in. We thought everything was smooth, everything was okay, but then in a couple of minutes, I saw one bad feedback in Google reviews saying like the staff wasn't that much helpful, the staff wasn't smiling. And so one bad comment would definitely affect the image of the property. Me being the hotel manager, I always go to an easy solution, which is being more personalized and reaching myself to the guest. What I did was to give the guest a call in the room, check if the family was checked in well, if there's anything that she need, and point out about the review that she just posted in our property, about our property, and then ask her what made her feel that way, what made her post that comment or that review in our website. And I will always try to put myself in the shoe of the guest to understand more where they're coming from, and for me to be able to give a proper solution to her problem. And I think the most creative solution in hospitality industry in dealing with complaints is being more personalized and just be yourself and have that connection with your guests, like treat them as family. Because with that, I think it's easier to resolve the issue.
So we've been talking about creativity and solving problems in a creative way, and we're going to continue to talk about that. Let's talk about innovation. Why are some people more creative than others in solving problems?
I think some people got a critical thinking skills. Some people are just happy-go-lucky. Like, let's see what happens. They always have this thought like, let's wait until the problem comes.
What role should creativity play in education?
I think it gives a very big impact, especially to students. It helps these individuals know what they really want in life, and it helps express what they feel. For example, I used to be a dance troupe member, and I was also in theater back then. So for me, dancing is an art. And I think it's a perfect way of expressing myself.
Now let's talk about creativity in the workplace. How can companies encourage creative thinking?
I think a lot of companies are involved in these things these days. Back then, you go to the office, do your 9-hour job, same cycle every day. But then, right now, these days, people are more vocal about their thoughts, how to improve a company policy, and how to improve the workplace. I think the company should really listen to their employees. That way, the employees would put out their creative side, which could also give benefit to the company.
And finally, how important is creativity in today's job market?
It's very important. It's because you have a lot of competitors out there. And if you're going to just stick in your bubble and not go out of your shell and express ways or show out more skills and be more creative, I think it'll be difficult for you to go up there and be acknowledged with what you have. And I think it's very, very important to just express yourself and just believe in yourself that you're capable of what others can.
What I'm going to do is take each part. We're going to talk about strategies and tactics for part 1, 2, and 3 and how you could improve that. And then we'll look at the marking criteria. So pronunciation, fluency and coherence, grammar, vocabulary. How did you do with those? And then we'll give you a score at the end. Don't forget to grab your free Fluent Speakers checklist. Link is in the description below. And if you want our complete system, our VIP system, there's also a 10% discount on our VIP course in the description below. Both links are right there. All you have to do is just click them. Now back to the video. So part 1, you did quite well. You didn't seem very nervous. Maybe you were a little bit nervous, but but you seemed quite comfortable answering those questions. One thing that I did notice was sometimes you didn't answer the question directly. So for example, I asked you, how have spending habits changed in your country? That question is really about your country, not about you. You talked a lot about you. You didn't talk about your country. Part 1 is about you, but where you're from is a very, very common question, and that is part of you. Take a few seconds to think about what is the examiner actually asking me. You didn't do it for every answer, but on test day, you might be super nervous. A tactic that a lot of students use is just, I call it the shotgun method, which is just spray information related to that general topic and hope they hit something. You want to be less like using a shotgun and more a sniper. So really targeted, take your time, think about what they're going to say to you. If you're unsure, you can always say, can you repeat the question? Or ask them, for example, with that one, how have spending habits changed in your country? You could ask them to clarify what some of the words mean or what exactly, and they might paraphrase it or phrase it in a different way. You could also use some fillers. For example, that's not something I've thought about before, or that's an interesting question. Let me think about that. Or, I've never really thought about that before. It just gives you a little bit of time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to do that for every, what's your name? That's an interesting question. Believe me, that has happened. But it just gives you that little bit of time to think. Another thing that you did was I asked you about food, and you listed like every single type of food available. Again, that's not a huge problem for one question, but a lot of students will do that for the majority of questions that they get. What season do you like? Well, I like spring, and I like summer, and I like winter, and I like autumn. That is not an answer, that is a list.
Yeah.
Because the examiner wants you to show different things. For example, can you construct a full sentence? Can you use different tenses, different grammatical structures? So just listing stuff is you're limiting yourself to just a bunch of words instead of really developing it out into a full answer. So for part 1, I would say, listen to the question, really focus on that. And I would use the strategy of think, directly answer the question right away, and then develop it. I'm not saying this for every student that is Asian, but a lot of people from that part of the world have been taught to not give direct answers and not be very direct.
Yes.
And to kind of beat around the bush, not really
That's
hone
so
in.
true.
That's not a criticism. That's not saying that's bad. But it's just part of your culture, especially with teachers in education, to not say, this is exactly how I feel about that. That can cause problems on test day, because you'd say, well, there's this thing that's kind of associated with the answer and this thing that's kind of related to the answer, and you never really answer the question. What often happens is, because the examiner has to ask you so many different questions in part 1, they'll stop you and they'll move on to the next question, and you haven't answered it yet. The Philippines is known for having high levels of English, but often scores can be quite low. That's one of the problems. And I'll talk about other problems related specifically for Filipinos, but it's related to a lot of people. That is one of the issues, is just not answering the question. Part 2, similar. Like part 1, your fluency is great, but the thing you need to remember about fluency is connected to something called coherence. So fluency is, are you talking naturally at a natural pace without too many ums, too many ahs, too many pauses? But coherence is, did you answer the question and did you actually develop it? Your strategy there was to start off with the general background of the story. And you only at the end really talked about the actual question, which is describe a creative solution. Again, it's a timed test. and the examiner might have, 10, 20 people to examine, they will stop you at about the 2-minute mark. So if you're spending 2 minutes just giving general background and general context, and then you're going to answer the question at the end, you might not get there before the examiner stops you. Now, a good examiner will wait a little bit, because I knew you were getting there. I knew you were getting to the answer. But some of them might just be, they're human beings. They might have had a bad day, and you're the last person that they're, and they just are like, once you get to 2 minutes, and then they're like, well, the person didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
So similar to part 1, answer the question right away. Okay. Describe a creative solution you find to a problem. I did this. Answer right away at the beginning. And that gives the examiner no chance to say she didn't answer the question. And then when you've answered the question, then give all the supporting information related to that. Part 3, similar problems. Not answering the question directly.
Yeah.
Giving lots of background information, and not really developing your answers enough. A way that you could develop your answers is when somebody asks you one of these questions, what I would do is try and think of a concrete example. It could be from your own life, or it could be something a little bit more abstract. But why are some people more creative than others in solving problems? You could think of a real person in your life, or maybe a company like Apple are very, very good at solving problems. Think of a real example. Okay. And if you can, answer the question and then say, for example, Apple is known for coming up with very creative problems to solutions. You don't have to do that all the time, but that might help you directly answer the question and develop your answer all at the same time. Another thing that you could do is, use that way that you have of thinking, which is show both sides, but instead of talking about what you think, what a lot of people from Asia are very good at is using this technique, which is, well, some other people think this, and other people think another side. And then what you do at the end is you say, and I would agree with B. Don't worry if you get a question in part 3, you're like, I can't think of a real example, but just try your best. There will always be answers. So if you don't know the answer, feel free to just say, I've never really thought about that. I don't know much about that at all. But if I had to guess, people would say this, Overall, you're doing quite well. But I'm focusing on things you can improve, because I think that you can do much better. Now let's give you your score. Let's start off with fluency and coherence. So fluency, again, is can you speak without much effort, without many audible pauses? Can you speak at a normal pace? You have no problem with that. That's probably your biggest strength. And this is what I often find with Filipinos, is their fluency is great because you guys speak English so much. Fluency, and especially if you work in an English-speaking environment, your fluency is very, very good. However, in the IELTS speaking test, fluency is connected to coherence. They're both in the same criteria. And if, for example, your fluency is at a band 9, but your coherence is at a band 7, you get a 7. So you get the lowest one. Your fluency is actually at a very high level, but your coherence needs a lot of work. So the good news is you can fix your coherence very, very easily. Like if you have a problem with pronunciation, it could take you years to fix that problem. You could fix that coherence issue today by just using the techniques that I just suggested. Most of your answers, you did answer the question and you did have enough development, but there were those issues. So you would get a band 7 because of your coherence. Another big strength of yours, and again, this is very common with many Filipinos, is your pronunciation. Pronunciation is very clear, easy to understand. You also show some of the higher level features such as intonation and word stress. However, you can fix this problem very, very easily, so don't worry about it. Sometimes maybe it's to do with nerves, but you speak inside your mouth at the back of your throat a little bit sometimes. The main thing that the examiner is thinking about is, can I understand everything that she says? Or are there times when I really have to focus on what you're saying because I'm struggling a little bit? It's causing difficulty for it. So 99% of the time, no difficulty at all. But I'm very close to you. But sometimes you're just speaking at the back of your throat a little bit, and it's not a pronunciation issue. I think it's a confidence issue. That is causing me sometimes to really think about what you're saying. It's causing a little bit of difficulty. So you wouldn't be able to get one of the top bands for pronunciation because of that. All you have to do is just pretend that you're speaking to that back wall, not me.
Yeah.
All right?
It's very good advice.
And it will fix that issue almost immediately. And if you do, you probably will get a band 8 or a band 9 for pronunciation, which will really bring up your whole score. But at the minute, it is a band 7. So now let's talk about vocabulary. You did use some great expressions like I'm a foodie myself, happy-go-lucky, go out of your shell, put myself in the shoes of the guest. And then you have very topic-specific words such as, talking about hospitality, hotel manager, VIP guest, checked in, or for food and cuisine, sushi, Filipino food. You have no problem talking about those things, and you have the vocabulary to back it up. So there's some areas of improvement for vocabulary. Sometimes you try to express something using a higher level idiomatic expression, but you'll get it slightly wrong. For example, green hands instead of green thumb. And sometimes you will use quite simple words repetitively. Like I really like this, or I really love this, or I think this, I think that. And those are fine, but I think that you're capable of maybe using more advanced vocabulary there. So there's lots of opportunities where you'd be able to say it instead of I think this or I like this, what would be a more advanced verb to use there if you wanted to go for one of the higher scores. The score I would give you for vocabulary would be a band 7. The reason for that is you are attempting some more advanced language at times, but there are those little imprecise uses or inaccurate uses at times. So most of your vocabulary is good. And then to get one of the higher scores, you would need to both increase the range of your vocabulary a little bit and increase the precision, the accuracy a little bit. But vocabulary is a balancing act. If you try and go too far, you could drop down to a band 6. Because if you try and use words you don't really know how to use, then that could drop your score to a band 6 because you're making too many mistakes. If you just need a band 7, I would stick to what you're doing. Always be improving your vocabulary. But if you want one of the higher scores, then we could help you out with that as well. But it would take some time. It would take at least a few months if you wanted to get up to a band 8 or a band 9 for vocabulary. So again, one of the things that we notice a lot with Filipino students is something called systematic errors. This is because you guys speak English very well, very fluently, but you make a lot of little grammar errors and you don't correct each other. That grammar error becomes ingrained, and then you go and do an IELTS test or you move to an English-speaking country, and then why do people think that I'm making mistakes, or why am I getting a lower score? Because to you, it sounds totally fine because you've been speaking, let's call it Filipino English, for many, many years, and no one has ever said that's an error. But when you do the IELTS test, again, you're moving to an English-speaking country, they will pick up on those errors that you're completely unaware of. So, for example, staff wasn't that much helpful. It should have been the staff weren't very helpful. Or every household in Philippines, there's really gardens. Instead of in every household in the Philippines, there are gardens. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's no problem with meaning, but there are a lot of those little, for example, subject-verb agreement issues, article issues, and there's some tense inconsistencies. So the way that the IELTS examiner will think about your grammar score is number of sentences with or without errors. So let's say, just using round numbers, let's say you spoke 100 sentences. If more than 50 of those sentences had grammatical errors in them, more than half, you would get a band 6 for grammar. If more than 50 of those sentences had 0 errors, those would be known as error-free sentences, you would get at least a band 7. In my opinion, there were more small little errors in most sentences, so you would get a band 6 for grammar. And this is extremely common for Filipino students, and this is one of the main reasons why they get 6.5. So their fluency is great, they answer the questions, their vocabulary is quite good, their pronunciation is excellent, but this grammar issue brings them down. That should be your main area of focus. So overall, you would be in and around 6.5 or 7 overall. Now, for most people, 7 is great from whatever they need to do, but 6.5 is often not good. Depends on what you want to do. My advice would be to really focus on grammar, and that can be quite difficult because, as I said before, a lot of these issues are ingrained because you've been making those errors for years, and you don't know you're even making them. It doesn't affect communication, so it's not a huge issue. It just depends on what score you're hoping to get. So, any questions?
No.
Less than 1% of people ever get a 9. Less than 3% of people get a band 8.
Really?
So band 7 is quite good. So don't worry.